Hello, everyone. Let me shut this door back here. How is everybody doing? I just noticed that it's open back there. Hold on. Okay. All right. How is everybody doing this evening or tonight or this morning, where everybody is? As you can see, I am still in Pennsylvania, and I will probably be here for a while. So just get used to this background here. Just get used to it. And it's been going very quickly here. I can't believe that I've been here a week and a half. The time, I have to admit, has kind of flown. It's gone pretty fast. And here we are into February of 2022. And in fact, today is Groundhog Day. And in fact, it's February 2nd, 2022. So I guess the date is 2222. Crazy. That won't happen again until February 2nd, 2122. And I don't think any of us are going to be around to see that. So good to see all of you here. Thank you for tuning in to this live show. Of course, back at its regularly scheduled time of 9 p.m. Eastern in the United States on Wednesdays. Of course, last week we did the show on Thursday due to my appearance on News Nation Now, which I thought went very, very well. And in fact, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that tonight. So as you are watching, you know what I tell you. Give this video a thumbs up. Just do it. Get it out of the way now. You might forget later. You'll be so, enraptured by what I'm saying here that you may forget to do it later. So just give this video a thumbs up now. If you're watching live here tonight, that's fine. Do it right now. If you are watching this in a rerun, 137 years down the road, still give it a thumbs up. I'll be long gone, but wherever I am, I will thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. So let's see who is in here. Karen says first again. Way to remember that, Karen. Charlotte, good to see you, Charlotte. I have a question from Charlotte that I will be answering. Hello, CR. Good to see you. Angel, coming to us, I believe, from Australia. And I'm happy you're on here too, Angel. Good to see you. Thank you for making the time. And the real, it's raining cats and dogs. So I'm going to be talking about the weather here in a bit, here in Pennsylvania. Renfrew, Jasmine, K-Dog, Christy, good to see you. Kathy, what's going on? As Angel's saying, it's one here in Victoria, Australia. And Charlie, there's the moderator herself. I'll have you know that Sheree and I had a great conversation. We don't talk on the phone too often. I can't even remember the last time we spoke on the phone, Sheree, but we had a good conversation last night about a lot of things going on behind the scenes with Unfound. And Sheree is a very good person who I can talk to about these issues. And she gives me some good advice. So it was good talking to her last night. She is obviously the moderator and has been the live show moderator, I think, going back to maybe to 2018. K-Dog says, I think you have too much on your hands to always be first. Fishing, what's going on? Yeah, good to see you back in the chat room, Fishing. And SL is Hickinson. That's interesting. That's a name right there. Giving it the thumbs up. And Valerie. Yeah, I have to admit, I kept maybe Sheree up a little past her bedtime last night. So she's a little exhausted. Sorry about that, Sheree. So once again, give this live show a thumbs up. And if you consider it as you are watching live tonight on February 2nd, please consider giving a donation to Unfound with the Super Chat button. It's right down there. I see it right there. Gray box, $ in the middle. Any contribution, any donation to the program is greatly appreciated. You know that. It's been a little warmer here. When I did the show last week, if you'll remember, I had like a sweatshirt on and I actually had my legs covered up with a blanket. Of course, you couldn't see that, but I did. It's gotten a lot warmer here. It was in the 30s today, maybe even 40 degrees. So a lot of this stuff is melting. You see a lot of the icicles that are hanging down, they're melting. The snow is slowly going down, but that's all going to change tomorrow. In fact, from what I was looking at the map, the weather, starting at 6 a.m. tomorrow, so while I'll be sleeping in this bed right here, the snow will start, and it's supposed to snow for 24 hours. And we're supposed to get between 5 and 8 inches of snow. As I've said many times, I'm not a big snow guy. There's a reason that I lived in Las Vegas and then I moved to Florida. There are reasons. But if I'm going to be here in Pennsylvania in, December, January, February, then I want it to be cold and I want it to be snowing. I don't want any of this 40-degree blah weather, rain. Just give me the snow. Give me a foot of snow. Give me a couple of snow. Give me 0 degrees. I just don't like anything in the middle. Give me 80, 90, 100 degrees and sunny, or give me 0 degrees and snow is like coming out of the sky. I don't know, like the asteroid or whatever it is, an Armageddon or Deep Impact. That's what I prefer. So that's going to be starting tomorrow. I've read it's 6 a.m. and it's going to continue until 6 a.m. on Friday. My dad's already talking about taking his Jeep out. Of course, has a 4-wheel drive, and let's go doing a little 4-wheeling. Maybe we will end up doing that. We'll just have to see. In fact, we kind of did a little bit of it. We were over at Moraine State Park, and some of the roads there are not plowed or anything. So we went down a couple roads and, just messing around. So we did that. Charlotte, we're supposed to get 16 inches of snow here in Lima, Ohio by Friday. I'm here near Butler, Pennsylvania, Charlotte. It gets a little bit of that lake effect as well. So who knows what it's going to look like tomorrow? Who knows? Hey, we got food. Got the heat's working. Just have to ride it out. I'm just gonna have to ride it out. Maybe if I'm feeling adventurous, maybe I'll run out into the snow, do a little live video or something in the snow tomorrow. Maybe if I'm feeling up to it. I do have to do an interview at 3:00 tomorrow. TD says, "Be very clear that you drove." Yes, I did all. I've done all the driving. TD, thank you. Yes, for any the powers that be, if any law enforcement officials are watching this, I'm the only one doing the driving. Okay, just to be clear. So we'll see what goes on with that. 24 hours of snow. Of course, right when I got here, it snowed quite a bit, and it really hasn't snowed a ton since then, but it stayed cold, and so the snow didn't go anywhere. But it did really warm up today. But like I said, tomorrow it's going to go back to what it was when I got here. In fact, I will tell you that I went last Friday. I met up with a longtime best friend of mine, Brad, and actually he and I lived together when I first moved to Las Vegas. And he now lives back here in this area. I met him for a dinner last Friday evening near where I grew up in Leechburg. And about half of the drive home on Friday night was a little dicey. Of course, Pennsylvania, we've got some hills and things. The first part of it, the roads were not good. And once I got into what we would call Butler County, the roads got a lot better. But leaving the restaurant and getting down to a place called Freeport, I had to go slow. So I haven't had to use my snow driving, slick road driving skills in a long time. Luckily, I'm doing it in a Jeep. Maybe if I was driving a Corvette, it would be something different. So there you go. Charlotte said, we had a terrible blizzard here in January 78. It was record breaking and people died. Yeah, I believe it, Charlotte. I can remember growing up in this area, growing up in Leechburg, getting some snows that knocked out our power and missing school and all that. Yeah, for sure. Valerie's asking me a question, but I think I know the answer. Do you go to Crime Con? It's in Vegas. No, as I've stated, Valerie, you won't see me at Crime Con ever. So I didn't even know it was in Vegas. I didn't even know that. In fact, it was in Florida. Just with COVID, it's hard for me to remember. Was it last year, the year before? And of course, I didn't go to that either. So that's what's going on with the weather here. And like I said, if you follow me on my personal page on Facebook, maybe I'll do a little video, go out in the snow and do something stupid tomorrow and video it and post it there. So maybe be looking for something like that. I did that. The winter I spent here after my mother died, I went out and did a snow angel. And that video is still, I think, up on my private site somewhere, my personal site somewhere. So I don't know what I would do this time. I'll figure out something. So once again, as you are watching, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to do that. I can see how many people were in here, and some of you have still not given this video a thumbs up. All right, I'm doing the best I can here. Moving on, of course, today is Groundhog Day, and last week I told you I would give you my Groundhog Day story. I don't know if probably haven't told this story. I would only tell this story if the live show fell on Groundhog Day, and I don't know if it's ever done that in the past. So I'm going to tell you my 1997 Groundhog Day story. And Groundhog Day, by the way, the film is a favorite of mine. But I'll tell you what the way they portray Groundhog Day in the movie is nothing like what it is in real life. So I'm going to tell you my story. I don't know how long this is going to go, but it's a good story. So that would have been 25 years ago today. That is just hard to believe. So I would have been 26 years old. And I was dating, of course, by the time that Groundhog Day kind of came around in 97, we were kind of a little bit on the outs, but kind of. But we went, myself and my girlfriend at the time, her name was Janie. We went to Groundhog Day. We lived in Leechburg. Punxsutawney is a couple hours away to the east. It was her idea, and so we went. And that particular year of 1997, Groundhog Day fell on a weekend. And you should know when it falls on a weekend, of course, they get way more people to show up. And I think she had gone before. I had not gone before. That was my first time there. And so we get up there, and when it's busy like that, they don't let you drive up right up to where Punxsutawney Phil comes up and does what he does. You have to park down near town, and then they have like school buses that will take people up to where it happens. This place, Gobbler's Knob, which is not in the center of town like it is portrayed in the movie. Gobbler's Knob is like out in this park somewhere, and there's no houses or anything around, no stores. It's like in these woods. And so we did that, and it's still dark. And we get on this bus, and it's dark, school bus, and all these people were piling in. We get up there, and these school buses the school bus takes us up there and lets us off. And it's almost like it must be like 5:30 in the morning or something crazy like that, 6 in the morning. And it's like a rock concert is going on. Music is blasting. People are, already in a crowd. They have these beach balls that they're, this huge crowd bumping up in the air. And it's still dark, but you see these lights, you hear the music, and it almost looks like a UFO landing. Because you see these lights through these trees, You see all these shadows, and it kind of reminds me of something right out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind or X-Files or something like that. No, not Lynchburg. Leechburg. S.L. Hickinson, Leechburg, Leechburg in Pennsylvania. And so I'm talking about going to Punxsutawney, 2 hours away. So we go down there where all these people are hanging out, and it's cold and it's just crowded. It's crazy. It's just crazy. Not like nothing I experienced in that time. And I've been to rock concerts since then, and it's kind of like that. And we're all waiting, and everybody's being crazy and everything. And finally, the guy with Punxsutawney Phil comes out, and it's all this big hoopla and everything else. And I can't even remember if Phil saw a shout or not. I don't even remember. But as this is happening, of course, the sun is just starting to come up now, and you're getting to see everything, and everything's starting to brighten up a little bit. And everybody's crazy. Phil does his thing, and I'm telling you, as soon as that was over, within a minute, everybody's huge crowd starts walking back, walking out of the area. And you have to remember, most of the people who showed up there were taken up to this location with these school buses. Well, it's easy for the school buses to bring everybody up there because everybody kind of gets there at a different time. Whereas when everybody's leaving at the same time. And of course, it's February. The ground is wet. It probably snowed or it melted, and it's muddy and everything else. The road up in this area isn't paved. And so now the sun is up, and now all these thousands of people are trying to get out of there. And it's chaos. It is complete chaos. There are no lines, no signs, nothing. There are just these buses that are coming up, and they're pulling up along this road, but it's not like, well, the bus is going to stop here and this is where you get on. It's nothing like that. The bus drivers were just kind of just randomly picking where they were going to stop along this road to let people onto the bus. It was not organized at all, not as far as I could tell. So it was chaos, and people were jockeying for position. There wasn't any fighting or anything, but it was high drama. Everybody wanted out of there. Of course, a lot of people probably, I think I did go to work that day, but I told them that I would be late. I worked for my family at the time. But probably a lot of people needed to get out of there because they needed to get to work on time or whatever. And so they're a little desperate to get out of there. But there certainly were not enough buses to adequately get everybody out of this area. And there was no way you could walk. It was too far to walk. Could adequately get everybody out there in a timely, organized manner. Just not possible. Just not possible. So Janie and I, we're trying to stick together, and we're standing, it's like a huge group, like 10, 15 people deep, both ways behind on this muddy road. And these buses are coming up from the left. And once again, they'd stop here or they'd stop here. They'd load up people, and that one would pull away. Another one would stop up at a different area. So you never knew if you were going to get on the bus or not. Even though you were standing right along the road, you couldn't be sure you were going to get on a bus or not. And if you're standing right, maybe the bus door stops right here or it stops way down there, and you're probably not going to get on. Chaos. And there were a couple times where we thought we were going to get on a bus, but the bus just passed us by, went down to a different area. Well, in this chaos of all of this, Janie and I got separated. I don't even remember how that happened, but it somehow ended up, I was here and she was down to my right, maybe 15, 20 feet. And a bus comes up from the left, and there's still a ton of people there. And it passes right by me, but it stops right in front of her. So she's guaranteed to get onto the bus. And I have, because between me and her, there might be at least 30 people, back this way. It was just a huge crowd. It was just a mob. So the school bus door opens. She gets on. She doesn't even wait for me, which is one of the reasons maybe that we didn't end up being a couple anymore. But she gets on the bus. And I'm standing there and I'm like right by like the back tire, it's a school bus, dual, one of these long yellow buses. And I'm standing right around where the rear tire is. And I'm right up against the bus. Like the bus is like right here. She gets on and I see her walking down the aisle of the bus. She's inside and she's seeing me. And she's mouthing to me, I'll meet you back at the parking lot, and I'm like, no, we're not, that's not happening. I said, open up this window. And you remember, I don't know how school buses are today, but those school bus windows where you had to push in like the tabs and slide it down. Do you remember that? Push it in, slide it down, push it in, slide it down. And the one pane was stationary and the other one would come in like in front of it. Maybe you all, so I tell her, you put this, she comes back to where I'm standing, like at the bus right here. She puts the window down and she's telling me, hey, Ed, I'll meet you back at the parking lot. You can get the next bus. I'll meet you. I said, no, get out of the way. Get out of the way. So she backs away from the window and I pull myself up in through the window onto the seat. True story. True story. And I could fit through the window. I think I could still fit through one of those school bus windows now. Although I weigh a little bit more, I'm still not that thick. So she opens up the window and I do a chin up right up in to the bus. And so I passed up like 30 people getting on this bus. And people were cheering. I suppose some people were ticked, but I think also people understood my motivation because everybody was just so frustrated, exhausted, angered, rushed. It was a scary situation. It really was. And there were still, I got onto the bus and we must have waited a half hour at least to get on a bus that, came to our area. And once she and I were on the bus, there were still hundreds and hundreds of people there. But I just pulled myself right up into that bus, did not even think about it twice because there was no way I was missing that bus. There was no way that, I was going to stand here and she goes down to the parking lot. That's crazy. So it just occurred to me, I think I can make it in through one of these windows and I dare them to kick me off this bus. So up and through. And, but it was a great time. So that's my story from 1997 going to Groundhog Day. Now, have you know, I went back in 1998, but it wasn't nearly as crazy because it was on a weekday. And so it was on a weekday. I think it was on a Tuesday. And so it was much more organized. They actually allowed you to drive up there. You could park in this field. It was not crazy at all. So we could get out. And I actually went with I had a different girlfriend the next year. Her name was Sue. We went up there, parked the car, walked down, had a great time, had breakfast in Punxsutawney, came back. Much more low key because it was a different day of the week. So that's my Groundhog story. But I can assure you, it's not like you see in the movie. That is a total fabrication on Hollywood's part of it being in town, and it's not downtown. Yeah. So that's my Punxsutawney. That's my Groundhog Day, and I haven't been back since. But it was because I went there in 1998, February 2nd, 1998. Well, I moved to Las Vegas in May. So there you go. Let's see what everybody else. Linda says she's late, but she's here. Angel says, oh, Janie, no, you didn't. Yes, Janie did try to leave me there. She did. Not surprising. Linda's saying we need Angel. So basically, if Janie hadn't got separated from you and got on the bus and opened the window, you'd still be waiting there. Maybe. You can't rule anything out. I mean, people were in danger of getting trampled. And the thing was, the other thing I didn't mention is people were standing along this road. Well, everybody's so anxious, they kept moving out into the road. And so when the buses would come up, the buses had to keep moving farther and farther and farther to the other side of the road. And it was almost like they were almost their driver's side tires were almost in the ditch on the other side of the road. It was crazy. It was crazy. So that is my Groundhog Day story from 1997, 25 years ago today. Little did I know where I would be 25 years later. Like I said, the one in 98 was a good time, but no drama or anything in 1998. So thank you for listening to my story on February 2nd. I think that Phil did see a shadow, so I think that means more winter, which I guess shouldn't be a surprise being that it's going to snow tomorrow. Moving on, like I said, I got to see my good friend Brad at a place called The Bonfire. It is a restaurant that still exists. We used to go back to it way back in the day after we'd go drag racing. And got to sit down. Good to see him, talking to him. We had some wings. I also had a fish sandwich, and it was good to see him. And maybe I hope to get to see him again before I go back to Florida, whenever that's going to be. In other news, which was exciting, is I know that I've talked about it a couple times over the past few months. I'm in a football pick'em league for the NFL with my brother, his wife, and a bunch of their neighbors in Largo, Florida. There's 20-some people, $20 to play. And I ended up winning the league this year. I had been like halfway through the season. I was maybe 3 or 4 picks behind, but then I got hot and I was in the lead or tied for the lead. And somehow I managed to hang on, and I ended up winning the league by 2 picks, which, is like nothing. Over the course of 18 weeks, all those games, I only won by 2, but it was enough. And I won $250. And the last time I won that league, I think, was back in 2014. So it's been a while. I was due. I'd come in like 3rd and 4th a couple times, but I got hot this year. And I didn't even watch that much NFL football this year. Just, I don't know what it was, but ended up winning the Hood Ball League. It's called Hood Ball. And $250 got sent to me through, Venmo or Venmo. And then that went directly to my bank. So very, very happy about that. I love to win. Of course, I love the money too, but I'm going to get a plaque. When I get back to Florida, there's actually a plaque that the guy who runs it will put my name and my nickname for the league. You should know my nickname for my username or nickname for the league this year was Banana Hammock. And the reason that is because when I was registering this year, I was watching the Friends episode from maybe one of the last seasons where Phoebe is dating Paul Rudd's character, and she comes up with this weird idea. She's going to change her name to Banana Hammock. I don't know, maybe some of you are Friends fans. You remember that. And I was watching that episode when I was filling this stuff out, and I thought, well, that'll be kind of a funny name. And so that's how I picked my nickname for the league this year. And I always try to pick something funny. I pick a different name every year. So that was good. Very, very good to win this. I won by 2 picks. My sister-in-law, my brother Brian's wife, she came in 3rd. And I think that way that broke down. I think we had a total of $400 in the pot. I got $250. Second place got $100, and third place got $50. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So I love, as all of you know, I love winning. I love winning at disc golf. I love winning at trivia. I want to win at hoodball. I want to win at everything. I'm very competitive. All right, so that's what's going on in my private life. My dad continues to cook here. I continue to do all the driving. I've helped him out with some of his banking and setting up some automated bill paying for him and other things I take out the garbage, and I've done a little shopping for him. So that's what I've been doing when I'm not doing unfound work. I got a lot of unfound work done today. I'm going to talk about that. So there you go. That's what's going on. That's what's been going on in my life since last Thursday, since the last live show. So let's move into the body of this live show for February 2nd. Now that we are a half hour in, where do I want to start? Well, I'm going to start where I usually do, and that is with the poll that we conduct or in the discussion group every week. Of course, last Friday was the disappearance of Jennifer Perry. I call it a very unique disappearance for a lot of different reasons. Considering that she's the only teenager who's gone missing and stayed missing in Marathon or in Monroe County in the last 40 years. We have to look at the geography and everything that was going on. Very unique. But in the think tank, gave a couple different choices. Was she abducted and taken from the area? Did she take off on her own? I gave everybody a few different choices. And the most popular choice in the poll this week was she was abducted and taken from the area. In the think tank, the discussion group, in the think tank, that was a popular choice, but there wasn't quite a consensus. There maybe, was the idea that something did happen to her, and of course she is not with us, but she could still be in the Marathon area. And then maybe, and some people are open to the idea that she wasn't abducted at all. She wanted to leave and she went with somebody, and maybe still something bad happened, but that's sort of different than an abduction. So we talked about a lot of, as we do in the think tank. And if you'd be interested in getting in the think tank, I know, of course, many of the people who watch this live show are in the think tank, like Kathy and Linda and CR and a few others here. They love the think tank. They continue to support Unfound with their Patreon contributions. Maybe you should think about it as well. Patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You can be part of the think tank at the $12 a month level. And it's the only missing persons think tank in the world. That's it. One. And we do it here. So if that sounds like something that might be interesting to you, just go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Come on in, Dad. Look who's here. He's here. There's Edward C. Densel.
Don't be afraid.
Edward C. Densel is here. I'm just talking to them, talking about the poll that we did for this past Friday's episode, the disappearance of Jennifer Perry. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed, though.
Okay, well, it is 9:35.
I need to get some rest.
I know you do. Yes.
I had a very difficult
day.
know,
yeah, riding around in the car while I did all the driving. Yes. You had a tough day. Well, thanks for making an appearance.
He won't let me drive.
I'm not allowed to drive. All right, good night, Dad.
Good night.
There he is. It's a surprise appearance. You never know what's going to happen on this live show when I do it, the show here in Pennsylvania. So, Dad, he goes to bed. He really doesn't go to bed. He goes and lies down in bed and reads from his Kindle. So that's what he does. He'll be in there and probably, I doubt he'll still be up by the time the show ends at 11. But he'll go in, it's not unusual to go in there and lie in bed reading, and then maybe 45 minutes later, I'll go in, he'll still be up, and we'll just BS for a little bit. But probably by 11 o'clock, I think the lights will be out. So, yeah, that's him. Christy says, Linda says, hey, Daddy Densel. Yes, Christy, Jasmine, Cherie, yeah, K-Dog, your dad doesn't look any 5. I know that. I totally get it, K-Dog. You're absolutely right. And Cherie is posting the link, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Come join us. Come support the program. Linda, for anyone not in the think tank, become a Patreon member. Very inexpensive. You can't beat the discussion. Linda is correct. Now, getting back, as many of you know, I write a blog at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. If you'd like to read what I have to say about the disappearance for that week, kind of my analysis and insights that I have, trying to compare Jennifer's or any other disappearance, to others we've covered in the past. You can do that at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. And for me at the blog this week, I kind of agreed with the think tank or the discussion group that she was abducted and taken. It's hard to say. Did she go on her own? Abducted? I think she thought she was going by choice, but I think whoever took her was abducting her. Let's put it that way. And I pick out who I think did it in the blog there, patreon.com. So if you'd like to hear what I have to say about it, or you'd like to read, either way, I do a recording of it as well. Patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Christy says, I remember when he came in to see if you wanted a banana. Christy, I don't remember that. Was that when I was doing the show up here, or was that when I was in Florida and he was down to see me? I don't remember that, Christy. I don't remember. It's funny you remember that. Could that have been from, I was up here in August? Was it back in August of 2021? That's funny. It's funny you say that about bananas. I love bananas, but I don't eat them anymore because they have carbs in them. But no, like a few months ago. So, Christy, that must have been back in August then, when I was up here August. Okay. All right. Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I'm not eating bananas anymore. So maybe he might. I don't even remember if I said yes or not, but probably said no. I don't remember. You were there and sticking to your diet. Yes. So that must have been yes. Okay. So sure. That's exactly what I did. Okay. I don't remember that. That's funny that all of you do. That's fantastic. Okay. Let's move on to this. I want to talk about this. This really doesn't even have anything to do with true crime or anything, but it did catch my attention. And in some ways, I think it can be applied to what we do here. And I'm talking about the suicide of Miss USA from 2019. Her name is Chesley Christ. I'm sure many of you saw this. And it's anytime a well-known person dies, of course it gets attention. Anytime a well-known person commits suicide, it gets a lot of attention, like Robin Williams. But in this particular case, although I don't know how famous she was, she certainly wasn't to Robin Williams' level of fame, but she was just Miss USA a few years ago. But when a person who seemingly has everything going for her, she's a TV host, she's a lawyer, obviously a lot of great things going on. I have to admit, I had not heard of her. I really don't follow Miss USA pageants. But when I found out that she had committed suicide, I've read quite a bit about her and everything that she was doing in her life. And if you don't know what happened, she's 30 years old. And she jumped from, I think she was living on the 9th floor of this condo building in New York City. She went up to like the 29th floor or something and jumped, killing herself. And it seems everybody who knew her, reading the comments like on Instagram and on Twitter, just seeing what people had to say about her, it seems to me everybody was stunned. However, in some of the writing, some of the interviews that she had done over the past few years, she did talk about struggling with her mental health, mental state, feeling a lot of pressure, feeling a lot of stress. And sometimes you don't know what to make of that. I mean, of course, maybe we look at it objectively. It's easier for us to talk, and I'm sure many of you, you struggle with mental health, struggle with depression and sadness and those things, especially maybe because over the last couple years where things have been so far from the norm. But it seems to me that in reading about this young woman, that she'd been going through this even before all the COVID era started. And I think the reason I wanted to talk about it here is because, let's just admit it, if a young woman that had everything going for her like Chesley seemingly did, Miss USA winner, not just a contestant, a winner, represented the United States in Miss Universe contest. Lawyer, educated, beautiful, personable, great personality, doing great work, and all of these things. If somebody like that can consciously make the decision, yes, I'm going to go 20 floors above me and jump, then it's possible for anybody to do that. And so when I start moving that from her into disappearances, probably there are. I would never name them or anything. I wouldn't do that. But there's probably still, even though I've had the mothers of missing people in the program, the children of missing people, brothers and sisters of missing people, it very well may be that in a lot of these people's heads who went missing, we don't know what's in there. We don't know what's in their heads. We don't know. Just like I'm pretty sure nobody knew what was in Chesley's head, even though she had talked about it in interviews. Sometimes when people say those things, you wonder if people take it seriously. She has all these things going on, and then she talks about being depressed. And I think a lot of people read that and say, oh, she's just, what a drama queen. What a drama queen. She has all these things going. She's depressed. I mean, come on. And, and I don't even know this is necessarily like bringing up Robin Williams, because I think that everybody was surprised by that. I think the big difference would be that Robin Williams was not 30 years old. He was well into his 60s. We now know, and dare I say it, he was kind of on the downside of his career. Dare I say it? And we now know that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. We now know that he had been diagnosed with some condition that was going to start taking his mind from him, like maybe early onset Alzheimer's or dementia, something like that. All of that was going on in his life, things we did not know. We know them now. I think his wife and his children have come out and said that since. And I'm not saying that suicide is a good choice or anything, but you can see why somebody would really be depressed about those things and be very nervous about those things and what was going to be going on for the next 10 years. And was that Robin going to need care from others? Was he going to lose control of his life? Probably. But Chesley was not in that situation, at least not that anybody has said. Maybe it might come out a week from now or something that she was diagnosed with terminal cancer or something. Maybe. I've not seen anything like that yet. But this just shows us that when we think about disappearances and there doesn't seem to be a reason to think there was any foul play, but on the other hand, we start looking at that person and saying, he or she does not seem like the type of person that would have just walked off. Do we really know that? The fact is that despite a lot of strides being made in mental health in the 20th century, I think, up until that point, I don't know if mental health was a real science or not until the 20th century, but we get, of course, psychology, psychiatry, goes a long way. There's tests that can be done. I think really the mental health really became a thing. Mental health professionals really scientifically became a thing in the 20th century. But it's clear that well into the 21st century, in 2022, we really don't have a handle on suicide. And I think, and the reason I think I know that is because, as I've stated many times, when I talk about statistics regarding murder and violence, I'm just talking about the United States and disappearances. Since I was born on August 1st, 1970, the rate of suicide in the United States has skyrocketed. People are much more likely to commit suicide now in 2022 than they were in 1970, even though the United States statistically was a more violent place in 1970. But suicides are way up, addiction is way up, drug use is way up, depression is way up. I mean, we hear all the statistics about how many antidepressants and the billions of dollars that people spend every year on all of this. And we just can't forget about that when it comes to looking at these individuals that their loved ones are on the program every week. And we can never rule anything out. It also seems to me that, I would also say, and I sent this to a friend of mine, my buddy Dave, who I went to college with. He's one of the few people I still talk to from college. But I even told him, when a young woman like that has all of these resources that she had access to, we're not talking about a homeless person. We're not talking about a poor person. We're not talking about a person who doesn't have access to resources and help and everything else. She had access to everything, as much as any American could ever have access to, as far as help goes. And she still does that. It is a reflection on our culture, and it's not a good one. It's not. I worry about, have we as a culture in the United States just become a little too, comfortable with the idea of suicide, comfortable with the idea of death? I don't know. It really hit me with this. I don't know. It just feels like there's just a bad culture of something that is causing so many people to make this choice, that is causing so many people to, because really, the fact is, as bad as the last couple of years have been, how awkward they've been, how abnormal they have been, you would much rather want to be living now in the United States than when I was born in 1970. It's not even close. It's not even close. Of course, in 1970, we still had the Vietnam War going on. We had a lot of riots going on in the United States because of the anti-war movement, the peace movement. My perception is we had more racial, even though race has been a big topic in the last few years. All these race riots of the late 60s and the 70s dwarf anything that is going on today. Of course, people live a lot longer now. Of course, technology is so much better. Science is so much better than when I was born in 1970. It's not even close. By any measure, it's better to be alive now than it was then. But still, here in the 21st century in 2022, people are committing suicide at a much higher rate than they were back then. Bothers me. It does. It's very sad. I don't have an answer necessarily, and I'm just going to stick to my issue of disappearances. But this topic certainly does relate, I think, to what we do at Unfound, looking at the mental state of people. And if the loved one says, well, they were suffering from depression, a bipolar disorder or something, but then they say, well, I don't think this person really would have walked off, maybe we have to be more open to that. What can we do about that? It's just so bad. I realize that there are people like Robin Williams. I realize that there are people in situations in their lives where there is no hope. They have been diagnosed with some disease, something that cannot be fixed. They know that they are only going to live for a certain amount of time. If they're alive here on February 2nd, 2022, they've already been told you will not be seeing 2023. And I know there are a lot of religious objections in many different religions regarding suicide and get all of that. But when I think about that, I don't think it's crazy then that people contemplate that. The problem we have is a lot of people who are committing suicide are not in those conditions. They're not. That's I get that. You could maybe look at it like September 11th. Speaking of people jumping off of buildings, and you've probably seen the videos because they're on YouTube. These people were in the World Trade Center. They're up there on those top floors. The planes have already crashed. There's no hope. They know there's no way to get from the above the wreck, where the plane crashed, to below it and try to get down the stairs. The smoke, the fire, everything else. And then people make this decision, well, I can either burn to death or I can jump. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible. But I don't think any of us look at that person who jumped that day and said that person was crazy. It was, the least worst of two choices. That is something I think we can relate to. It's horrible. It's as horrible as life gets, but we get it. And we probably look at that person and say, you know what, we might make the same decision. But the issue we have is that we have too many people who aren't in that position that are doing this. And they're doing it. And granted, we have some overdoses, the things, we know that happens. But a lot of this is by choice. Of course, there's a lot of statistics out there regarding military vets who commit suicide at a much higher rate than the general population. In fact, they commit suicide at a higher rate than veterans from World War II, Korea, Vietnam. Why is that? What is going on? I don't have the answer, but I know it does relate to what we do here. And so anytime a topic of suicide is in the news or anything, I'm probably going to talk about it. Because although I still tend to believe that a large majority of the disappearances we cover on Unfound, there was foul play, I'm also very open to the idea that some of these were suicides and we don't realize it. We don't. Jasmine says, yes, you never know what is really going on in people's lives. Mindset. Linda says, I would rather live in the 1980s and stay there. I grew up in the Linda. I love the 1980s. I love the music and the culture and everything, but I don't think I'd like to go back. Thanks, Christy. There's so much bullying and harassment out there. There are people every day who behave as though they're working from a playbook on how to make someone commit suicide. They prey on the vulnerable. That's true. That's true. And the thing is, Chesley, she in one of their interviews, she talked about trolls, getting to her on Instagram and elsewhere. Sheree says, I think it's just more reported, honestly. Maybe it is, Sheree, but the statistics say there are way more. The statistics, whoever's studying suicide out there, statistically, people are much more. It may just be we realize it more. Very well could be. I mean, we could say probably that about anything now, given that news is instant now. But statistically, way more people are committing suicide now as a percentage of the population, out of so many 100,000 people than when I was born in 1970. Christy, I think people just get tired of certain issues they're dealing with. Very well could be, Christy. The question is, why are people getting tired of them now when it seems just a few generations ago they kind of stuck it out? In the town I grew up in, crazy depression, just everyday struggles were prevalent, but no one had a camera. Mm-hmm. That's true, Sheree. That's true. So the story just kind of caught my eye. And, we don't, there's just, nobody ever should be committing suicide. Let's just admit that. We understand why some people choose to do it. But I think that if we could say that we wish nobody, had that going through their head, the world would be a much better place. So there's hope for change. Many things are better, but people truly connecting with others on deeper levels seems to be changing for worse. And perhaps that's one of the factors in the suicide rate. I'm also one that misses the 80s. Good insights ahead. I miss the 80s for a lot of different reasons, but I got to tell you, I would not want to go back there. Christy, true. The camera thing online, everyone is competing and feeling like a failure, maybe. Yeah. Linda, my daughter had to do a paper on suicide and social media. Amazing the things I learned from research. And there's for hope for change. Thank you for your generous contribution tonight. If everybody's seeing the orange box there? There's hope for change has hit the super chat button and has generously contributed to the program tonight. There's hope for change. Thank you so much, and you make some good points there. There's no doubt that maybe because of social media that people don't see people, face to face as much anymore. And I have to admit that this is something maybe that I don't appreciate as much because not much of a public person anyway. So and as I've said, this last almost 2 years of COVID stuff in the United States, it's not really affected me that much. It's, if you have kids, if you're a teacher, if you have a job in a workplace and all of that stuff, I mean, your life has just been, thrown upside down. Whether you believe in masks, vaccines, I'm not getting into any of that. But one way or the other, your life has been turned upside down. Me, I think I've just been inconvenienced in a few ways. And, I guess there are good things about that, but maybe there are bad things about that as well. There's hope for change. I go back in a heartbeat, but that's just me. Okay, there's hope. Yeah, I'll take Ed Densel in 2022 over Ed Densel in, let's say, 1986 any day. I had a lot of great times. A lot of great things happened to me in the 1980s. Excellent things. But I think, I was 16 or 17, but I think there's no doubt. I think I'm a much better person now. I think I'm a much more compassionate now. I'm a much more understanding person now. I like having all of the freedom that I do now instead of living at home, even though I'm living with my dad right now. I love the internet, despite all the bad things that can go on there. I, of course, could not do Unfound without the internet. You know, just but I listen to 80s music and 70s music, and let's not kid ourselves. Even though we say we'd like to go back to the 80s, you start looking at the statistics regarding violence and murder, and we have to remember that the Soviet Union still existed, and all the Soviet bloc states, Poland, and all that, everything that was going on there. I'll take 2022 over any of that any day. So I just wanted to talk about that. Maybe some of you had seen that story. Maybe some of you haven't. I would check it out, and maybe you can learn a little bit about Chesley Christ. Once again, she was Miss USA just 3 years ago. It's very sad. All right, moving on. As some of you know, right here on this YouTube channel, I did the Unfound Now episode for January of 2022. I was sitting right in this chair when I did it. And I discussed the disappearance of Beau Mann, Beau, and his last name is Mann. I picked it out. It's gotten some attention. Thought it was interesting because he was a guy who started this app called Sober Grid. And being that we do talk about addiction on Unfound, I thought that was very relevant. Of course, there has been some articles written about him, and of course, the Sober Grid was getting to be a popular app, so he had done some interviews, get to know him a little bit, and then all of a sudden he's going to the 7-Eleven in Studio City and then goes missing. And so I talk a little bit about that. I will tell you that what made covering his disappearance is a little tough. I think I would have been able to understand it a little more and analyze it a little more, explain it a little bit better. I just could not find the address where he was living when he went missing. If we knew that, then, we could look at the Uber choice and his car and where he could have been walking and everything else. I just never, using the databases, which I think are pretty good, could not find where he was living. And that's probably the one thing that was missing from that. And then it brought up that he had this new guy in his life, and I forget the name now, but the guy had a very common name, so I couldn't even figure out where he lived. So I think that that's something that if I knew that, probably could have done. I thought I did a fine job, of course, but I could have even done a better job had I known that. And then we could start looking, well, if he lived, 2 miles away from the 7-Eleven, what's he doing there? Why did he take an Uber? What was going on here? Couldn't even just walk there. So I think a few things are still very up in the air regarding that. I have to tell you that it does kind of seem to me that maybe he fell back into his addiction tendencies. That makes a lot of sense. However, on the other hand, maybe, and it's, of course, his name is escaping me right at this second, but the disappearance of that older gay man who disappeared in Texas, and he was on some sort of app before he went missing, and he drove somewhere, and then, of course, his remains were found. We still don't know necessarily what happened to him, but that also entered my mind too. Could this have been the same thing? Could Beau have been meeting some new guy or something, and something went bad there? I'm also very open to that regarding Beau's disappearance. So check it out if you've not already. Alan White, thank you, Kathy. Alan White, yes, he went missing in Texas. I went to the gym, was only there for 20 minutes, then got in his car and didn't go home. And the car was found, and then he was found a few months later in the woods of this college campus. And there is a belief there that he might have been meeting somebody and something bad happened. No proof of that, I don't think so yet. But I'm very open to that regarding Beau's disappearance as well. But I can certainly understand if some people think, well, we don't know why he was at that 7-Eleven. Where was he going? What was he doing? And that kind of causes us a lot of times to think he was probably doing some things that he shouldn't have been doing. And then we start thinking about addiction because he was a former addict. So, all right. Let's answer our question. Well, I'm going to answer the question. You're just going to have to listen. Charlotte asked me, I know, Charlotte, you're in here. Let me just, there's hope for changes. I'm certainly not one of those people that does a good job connecting. I'm a big loner. I'm fine with that. There's hope. I'm a huge loner too. Huge. There's hope. In the 80s, I was in the Navy traveling on taxpayers' dime. I missed that very much. Well, now I understand. There's hope. I was not in the military. I'm not in the military at any time, but I get it now. But Charlotte, I know you're in here, Charlotte, asked me, she was looking at the Clearwater map, and she asked me, I've seen this Clearwater aquarium. Have you ever been there? It looks fascinating. And Charlotte, to answer your question, no, I've never been to the aquarium. But they just really built a new one. They've really improved it. I understand that it's really impressive, and it's very well known. I've not been to it, and I'm just going to admit why I haven't been there. I really don't have anybody to go with. I would love to go. When I've gone to Disney, for example, at Epcot, they have the living seas where they have the dolphins and the big aquarium and the fish and everything. I love that. We actually had an aquarium in my house growing up, although I think we got rid of it around maybe when I was 10 years old. But, aquariums and watching fish and stuff swim around and stuff, fascinating. But I haven't been to the Clearwater Aquarium, and I drive by it all the time. In fact, I could walk. I'm so close, I could walk to the aquarium. I've just never been there because I have nobody to go with. I'm going to go with my brother. That sounds weird. And I don't really go out. As all of you know, I'm a single guy, and I would just say this, I don't do any dating. But if I had a girlfriend or something, I'm sure we could put that on the schedule. But it would feel weird just going by myself. That's just weird. So maybe one of these days, Charlotte, I will check it out. You're certainly correct that it is fascinating, interesting place. It's really just impressive to drive by it because it's right there. You can see it. It's right there. Maybe one of these days, Charlotte, and if I go, I will let you know. But if you think it's cool, you're right. Marlene says, hey, finally got in. Marlene, did you have your pizza tonight? That's what everybody wants to know. Linda, I love Disney World. Me too, Linda. I had a year membership for a few years going back. But I decided in the last few years it kind of wasn't in my budget, and I just don't get over to Orlando as much as I used to. But when I used to play disc golf tournaments over there, I would actually go over there a day early and go to Disney. Got a little expensive. Charlotte, maybe you can get one of your brothers and your families to go with you. It looks fun. Like I said, Charlotte, I think, you go to aquarium or something like that. That just feels like a date type of thing. Like I went with my brother to see Bruce Dickinson speak in Tampa. That's different. Where you go to an aquarium, that feels like a date. I'm a straight guy. That feels like something you do with the opposite sex, not like you do. M says, my dad from SR is in St. Pete. He would go with you. I appreciate the offer. Thank you. Okay. It just, like I said, it feels like a date, type of thing. You're gonna go out, you're gonna go to dinner, let's go to the aquarium and watch the fish. And that's like going miniature golfing. Miniature golfing also seems like a date type of thing. Not something that you just do it with a buddy of yours or something. Okay. Charlotte says, thanks. Hey, Linda, I'm so jealous that you were able to go so frequently. I try for every 4 years sooner if possible. I haven't been to Disney. Let me think. Maybe 2017, 2016. Last time I went to an amusement park in Orlando, I went to Universal, and that was 2018. Marlene says, no pizza tonight. Had a Nathan's hot dog. Love hot dogs. We are fixing to freeze the next couple days. Not fun. She just said we are fixing. I love that, Marlene. Oh, your M says your father's from Slippery Rock. Well, I'm right near there. My dad went to the university. Actually, we went and had breakfast at Camelot in Slippery Rock. I don't know, the end of last week or something. We were up there. That's saying Slippery Rock is in St. Pete's. That's kind of cool, Em. Thank you for letting me know. Moving on. Did you all get the newsletter? It went out yesterday. Yes, I managed to get all this stuff done. The episode's done. Newsletter done. Unfound now done, even though I'm up here in Pennsylvania. But I got the newsletter done. You should have gotten it last night. And the newsletter was really just me telling you about where many of the things of Unfound are going in 2022. I think it's a big year. I think this is a very important year. A lot of good things should happen this year. There's no reason a lot of good things regarding episodes and everything we do here. It should all be good this year. I would say that, the only thing that COVID got in the way of was me speaking at schools. But already here in 2022, I've sent some emails out. I've had some conversations. And like I said in the newsletter, I would not be surprised if I spoke at 10 schools this year. Between this semester right here, the spring semester going up until like May, and then the fall semester starting in September combined, I would not be surprised if I spoke at 10 schools. So that's really, really good, really good. So if you're on the newsletter list, and you didn't realize you got it, look in your email, and you're going to see a forecast, a lot of things that are going on. Email list. If you're not on the newsletter list, please contact me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll put you on the newsletter list. The newsletter comes out once a month, the first of every month. I did not do January 1st because we had the update episode right before that, and kind of the update episode is kind of a newsletter anyway. So there was no newsletter for January 1st, but there was one that came out yesterday, and you can predict one will come out from now for the rest of the year. And not Camelot. My parents loved that place. Yeah. We went and ate at Camelot right there in downtown Slippery Rock. When was it? Maybe a week ago or something. What did I get? We both got, Dad and I both got gravy and biscuits with bacon. And he ended up getting, I think, coffee, and I don't drink coffee, so I had hot tea. That's what we got at Camelot. Yes. Western Washington. I don't know what you're talking about there in Western Washington. Not sure what you mean there. So the newsletter. Get on the email list. Would love to have you on the email list so I could send you the newsletter every first of the month. Now, one of the topics that is included in the newsletter, but I'm going to talk about it here again anyway, is that I may be, no guarantees yet, I've made no commitments to anybody yet. But I may be changing podcast providers. The provider right now is Podomatic. And I have to admit that I've been with them even before I started Unfound, doing another podcast. We were on Podomatic, and I really have no complaints about them at all. None. Zero. The issue, though, is that on Monday morning, on the end of last week, I got an email from a different podcast provider. I'm not going to say the name. You've heard of it. And in talking to the representative on Monday, it's a Monday, yeah. They are very interested in having Unfound as part of their, they want Unfound to be on their network. And I started talking to them. You know that I'm not a big stats guy, although at the beginning of this year, I did tell all of you how many downloads Unfound had for 2021, which is a crazy, insane number. At least I think I know there's podcasts out there that get way more. But for me, just thinking about it, it's an insane number. And I'm not going to say the number again. But this place has a way to start monetizing. And you know how much I hate ads. And I write about that in the newsletter. And I even talked to the representative about that. Here's one thing that's not going to happen ever, is that I'm not going to have any advertising that interrupts the program. Okay, I realize that happens on YouTube, but that's different. This is, if you're watching or listening to the episodes on YouTube, then that's really not the primary place where the podcast is. And this is why when I get complaints about, well, there's too many ads in the video, this, that, and the other, I say, fine, just go find the Podomatic app and you can listen to the episode for free with no ads. But in talking to this place, when I told their representative, because she asked me, if you give me an idea of how many downloads you get per month or something, I will be able to tell you probably what you could make per month. And when I told her how many, and what I did was I just gave her the download numbers for January, which was just finishing up. And once again, it was a huge number. It was, you take last year's, you divide it by 12 for last year. The number for January was bigger than that number. She told me that probably I would be making well into the 4 figures per month with Unfound. So when I say 4 figures, that means at least $1,000 a month. And when I say well into it, it's well above that. It's not up, of course, 5 figures would be 10,000. It's somewhere between 1 and 10,000. But I think you know what I'm saying here. But I was very clear with her that I would never want to be involved. I'm not going to be involved in a situation where ads are put in the middle of the program. You want to put them at the beginning, at the end, I get it. But I'm not going to be doing these serious. You know what we do at Unfound. We take things seriously. This show may be a little laid back. Sometimes the newsletter may be a little laid back. Sometimes some of the discussions we have in the think tank are a little laid back. Sometimes some of the Unfound Nows are a little laid back. But the episodes themselves, that is the core. That's that. Without that, there is nothing. And so there's a correct tone that needs to exist for those episodes. We're not messing around. It's serious. And so I told her, I'm not going to do anything to upset that. I'm not. And she insisted that it would not have to be that way. So we'll see. Now I talked to her on Monday. We had a very positive conversation, very I asked questions, she answered them. She asked questions about the program, I answered them. I made sure as well as I could that, as I think many of you know, I'm a little bit different of a podcaster. A little bit different. I don't pay attention to the numbers too much. I don't go to iTunes to see if Unfound is in the top 200. I haven't been to the iTunes. I was on iTunes recently, just on my dad's iTunes, to kind of sort out his music situation there in the store and everything. That's the first time I've been on iTunes in forever. I don't look at reviews. I don't care. As I told her, whether I get 2 million downloads or Unfound gets 2 million downloads a year or 1 download a year, the program's going to be done. It's going to get done. I don't care about that. And it's going to be done the right way. In that way, as you know, that is flies in the face of most of what everybody else does, because they do obsess on the numbers, because they are worried about this, because they are worried about that, because they are worried about maybe if they do have advertising and those things that, that's going to be cut back and all of these things. And I just told her, I'm just a different, type of podcaster. And if I'm with you, you're just going to have to understand that. It's just the way it is. I'm not a guy who started, as I think many true crime people do. They start a podcast because what they really want to do is be on TV. It's it's like the old Hollywood thing. I'm an actor, but what I really want to do is direct. I'm not like that. So, because I think one of the reasons, because I know once you start wanting those things, then they got you. Then they have control of you. They're going to use your desires against you so they can get what they want. And so I'm not going to allow anybody to do that. So I had this talk. She emailed me some PDF files this evening. I've not looked in them yet. I've actually, Cherie, as you looked in your email, I forwarded it to you. And I also forwarded the email to my assistant, Eric, who has some experience in this area as well. So I'm going to get Cherie's and Eric's insight into this, but I'll look at it tomorrow or something. So maybe changing, not sure. Gonna think about it. But you just first have to realize that, for the most part, as I've stated, I think that I think I'm as open and as transparent as any host in any genre there is for podcasting. Gotta be. But as I've been very honest with you, pretty much Unfound so far has been a money-losing proposition. I don't care. It's not going anywhere. But it's pretty much been a money-losing proposition. But I've not been upset about that, because I knew I was starting from scratch. I know there's a lot of learning to be done. I know that the podcast, it's going to continue to exist, but you know me, I've talked about talking at schools and doing this and being the guy people, news stations call when the disappearance happens. I want to be that guy. So I realized that to get to that point, there's a lot of learning to be done. It's no different than the Beatles before they were famous. They went to Germany and played under a different name to work, on playing together and getting, learning to write songs and play together and sound good together and everything else. And, and they had to scrape by. This is kind of the way I've looked at like this first 5 years of Unfound. Covering as many disappearances well as I can. Building a resume, having a good reputation, doing a good program, interacting with all of you. It's kind of like me going to college. And that's why I said I think it's time here in 2022 where we can get to that next step. And so maybe this is part of it. Maybe it's not. But they contacted me. I have to admit, as I told Cherie last night, I don't even know, we didn't even talk about I didn't even ask her how she even knew about Unfound. I don't even know. I didn't even ask her. So, but I will tell you this, when I told her that how many downloads the program had for January, it seemed to me, maybe it's just me talking to myself, fooling myself, but there was kind of a pause there. I think she was very surprised. And she was like, well, do you know, just looking at the figures, do you know that if you were to maintain that, this is how much you'd be making per month? And like I said, it's well into the four figures. It's crazy. So I have to think about it. You just can't not think about it. But like I said, this is going to be one of these things like I've complained about before. You listen to a 60-minute podcast and 15 minutes of it is ads, and the ads are right in the middle, stuck, just plop, right in the middle of a sentence or something, and it ruins the tone and everything else. I'm not doing it. I'll figure out something else. And I'm not poor anyway. So that's something that's going on. Wanted to tell all of you about it. Are you going to come out to Western Washington? I've never even been to the state of Washington, I don't think. I've been to Oregon. I've driven through Idaho, but I've never even been in the state of Oregon. And so I can't say anytime soon. Plus, it doesn't help that I live in Florida. It would be cool. And maybe if, right now when it comes to speaking at schools, I'm trying to stick to ones in Florida because they're easy to drive to. That keeps the expenses down. Start talking about going to Washington, California, Oregon, Idaho, and then we start talking about flying and everything else. Then it gets a little expensive. So maybe one of these days. Cherie talking about what I'm this new podcast provider possible. It makes good sense. Thank you, Cherie. Laed with 2 E's. That's funny. To Ed, yeah, that's funny. That is funny, Cherie. Christy, I honestly appreciate that you stand your grounds. It's more professional and serious. I think because the topic that we covered, Christy, is serious. I will tell you that if I was doing a podcast on, I'm not into video games, but let's just say, or I was doing a podcast on cars, or I was doing a podcast on, classic movies, which I certainly could do a podcast on classic movies, the tone would be totally different. It'd be a lot of joking around and laid backs. It would be totally different. Can't do that with missing persons. It's not right. This is the problem I have with so many true crime programs that do infuse a lot of humor. I just don't get it. So there's that, and I write about it once again in the newsletter. You can check it out there as well. So moving on, News Nation Now. Of course, I was on there last week ago. Man, the time has flown. But it seems to me, since I was on their channel last Wednesday, I have continued to communicate with one of the producers, the producer who initially contacted me. And I'm thinking that we're going to be able to start set something up where I can send them a list of disappearances that Unfound has covered. And then they will pick one out and feature it on their channel on that program like I was on last week. And so it would be a combination of giving them a list of disappearances that I think would work with their format, and then providing them with contact information for that guest. And then they interview that guest like they did with Denise last week for Rashawn's disappearance. And then also I would get to come on and speak for, 2 or 3 minutes about the disappearance itself. I think I'm going to be able to work something out like that. And that is also something that has been on my mind for a while, as Cherie knows, that I want to be the guy when a disappearance like Gabby Petito's happened, and it gets national attention, whether for all the good, bright reasons or all the wrong reasons, that these channels know Ed Densel is the guy to talk to. He can be ready at a moment's notice. He knows what he's talking about. He'll be there. He'll be on time. He's an intelligence guy. Kind of, maybe, kind of looks kind of nice, with the crazy hair and everything. And I can lend credibility to that program by talking about disappearances intelligently. That's where I want to get to with that part of it. Whether it's, CNN, News Nation Now, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, wherever. That's the point I want to get to. When they need someone to come on and talk about missing persons issues, I want that person to be me. And so last Wednesday was a really, really huge step in that direction. So now that I have that contact there, maybe I can get on there once a month or twice a month or something. I'll let you know how it goes, but it's something I think that is going to happen. There's hope. What are things that can be done to get witnesses to speak up? I heard the other day someone speak up because they fear being accused, as well as other reasons. I don't know if there's any magic formula. There's hope. Here's what I know doesn't work. Rewards don't work. I know that doesn't work. I think what I've learned after 240 disappearances is that people are either going to tell what they know or they're never going to tell what they know. They're either going to come up at the beginning, right when it happens, or they're never going to say anything. And it can be a little exasperating because a lot of times you would think these people would be people who should speak up. Now, very well may be they know nothing. I think we have to remember is just because we think some people know something doesn't mean they do. And they may be telling the truth when they really say, I just don't know. There's hope. If this was North Korea or China or somewhere else, maybe we could just torture these people. Can't do that here. As we know, there are many killers who are in jail who were proven to kill people, and they won't reveal where the bodies are. And they will go to the electric chair or the gas chamber, or what do we do now? Lethal injection, and they will keep those secrets to their death. And, what I would say that, by the time, my opinion is there's hope by the time, you're hoping for witnesses to come forward, probably it's too late. Probably what has happened is that things were messed up in the beginning. And this is why I am concentrating, going to these schools, hopefully more and more and more, trying to talk to these students about you need to get it right then. You need to know. As I stated, I don't know if I stated it in Louisiana, but I stated it down in Nova Southeastern. As I told those students, these families don't want to hear that you're not a missing persons, you're usually doing robbery or something, or you're usually just a patrol officer or something. They don't want to hear that. Don't try that with them. They're going to expect you to know what the hell you're doing. So you better. Because you just saying, well, this is my first time and everything, that's not going to fly. So this is, when it comes to witnesses and things, I talk about it. You can always keep giving it a chance. I just think that, a lot of times we just know those things don't work, or it could either go the other way. They really don't know anything, but you put so much pressure on them, they start just saying stuff just to make you go away. That's even worse. So there's hope. There's no secret formula. What has to be done is something that's not being done right now, is that officers, when they take those reports, they have to know what they're doing then. They have to know it. Just like, any sort of profession, anything else. You show up at the dentist, and the dentist said, you're telling pain back there. The dentist takes an X-ray and it immediately knows what needs to be done. Now, it may cost $8,000. Don't I know the feeling? But at least they know what they're doing. But what if you went to the dentist and he took an X-ray and he says, well, I'm just not sure. I'm going to have to think about it for a while. And I know you're in pain, but you're just going to have to wait. Nobody would be happy with that. But that seems to be where we are with missing persons cases. And it sucks. If he were like that with the dentist, what would happen? If that was the way the dentist was for everybody, you'd start losing teeth, if it's going to take a week or something to get something done. The whole thing needs to be more professional. And there's just no easy answer. There's hope. Jasmine says, hopefully it all works out for you. Thank you, Jasmine. Christy, I think honestly you will be the guy in capital letters. Thank you, Christy. Moving on. Tomorrow, I'm going to be interviewing a 95-year-old, if you can believe it. And she will be the guest. I don't know if it's going to be next Friday, but maybe the Friday after that. I haven't worked that out yet. But I am interviewing a 95-year-old for an episode tomorrow. And I've spoken to her before. I spoke to her way back in 2018 when she was a youngster of 92 or 91. But she's still very sharp. She is a retired police officer. And we are going to be talking about 2 disappearances and an unsolved murder that are all connected to the same building over the course of about 4 years. So I'm very excited about that. Not going to tell you who this woman is, not going to tell you the disappearances or anything yet, but I thought you might find that interesting. And of course, that means she's 10 years older than my dad. But she's still very sharp. I've been talking to her assistant who will be there for the interview as well. To kind of, once again, you never know. Of course, with that 95-year-old, you never know what can happen. But she's done interviews before. And so I will be interviewing her tomorrow. And you will be hearing her on an upcoming episode of Unfound, where, like I said, we're not just going to talk about one disappearance. We're going to talk about 2 that are still unsolved and a murder that is still unsolved. So I'm very excited. I don't know how that's going to go. That's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. I'll just handle it like any other disappearance or any other interview. But she certainly has an interesting story to tell, especially since she was the investigator, the prime investigator for at least one of these disappearances. But she knew about the other 2 because they happened in the same area around the same time. So really neat. You just never know, what you're going to run into. And like I said, I spoke to her back in 2018 for a particular reason. And now I'm finally going to be having her on the program. Really cool. You're very welcome. That's what I do. I love answering questions. There's hope. Boston says, I'll be listening on FF. Dang it. I just woke up. Sorry, Boston. That's fine. As you know, all of these are recorded. You can watch later. Christy says, I don't think that people realize the pain it causes the families to just not know. I didn't realize until I started learning about missing people. Somehow we need people to understand how awful it is. It certainly is awful. And it's even more awful, Christy, when a police department takes the information, but you just can tell they don't have a good handle on what should be done. There's hope. My dad is almost 90 and still sharp. That sounds like it's going to be a very interesting interview. I think it is. Boston, that sounds interesting. Looking forward to it. Hope you're having a great visit with your dad. It's going pretty fast. I was just talking early in the program, Boston, that I've been here for 10 or 11 days now, and it's gone very quickly. I'm keeping busy. As you know, I'm doing episodes, did an Unfound Now, did the newsletter. I've done an interview since I've been here, going to do an interview tomorrow. I've taken some phone calls. I appeared on national TV. So I'm still continuing to get stuff done. I just wish it was 80 degrees and sunny out. Moving on. I have to admit I missed this, but it sounds to me like this episode of 2020 didn't really reveal anything new or eye-opening. But last Friday, they covered Jody Huisentruit's disappearance. I have to admit I missed it. I'll even go further to admit that I forgot it was on. I could have watched it because I was home. I went to see my buddy Brad, but I was home well in enough time to watch it, but I didn't watch it. So if any of you did watch it last Friday, please feel free to post your comments or anything right here in the chat for all of us who missed it, right? Because I've known about Jody's disappearance for a long time, well before I ever started Unfound. Of course, we had Caroline Lowe on in 2020, interviewed her regarding Jody's disappearance. The podcast continues to happen. You know that I listen to it, one of the few true crime podcasts that I listen to. And I was one of the first people to ever be, start going to findjody.com, like, I don't know, 15 years ago or some crazy amount. It may be way further than that ago. So I've always had an interest in it. It was very rewarding to cover her disappearance over a year ago, but I just missed the episode of, I think it was 2020. From this past Friday. Charlotte says, I watched it and I learned some things. Okay. Kathy says, no new info, but fairly well done. Okay. Very good. And I need to thank Caroline Lowe because she has introduced me to the sister of a missing person. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to cover that disappearance sometime in February, maybe into March, maybe. And it's one from the 1980s. So let's go to the other question. And I know she's here. Linda is here. And she asked me, do I think 12 inches of snow is enough? Not in my book, Linda. Like I've said, I know this. I don't know if this makes any sense, but I would rather be in Florida right now. Of course, being here, you just can't walk outside. You, of course, can't go out and play any disc golf. Only one or two of my friends still even live in this area. I'm doing, it's not bad hanging out with my dad and everything else, but I wish that he had his driver's license. Trust me, I wish he had his driver's license, or I wouldn't have to be here, just to be honest. I don't mind hanging out with him. And truthfully, I had plans to come up here and see him anyway for a month. It's kind of just moved everything up when he found out that his driver's license had been suspended. So it kind of just moved everything up. I wasn't going to come up here until after I had some disc golf tournaments scheduled. But when he found out his license was suspended, I was like, well, I might as well go up there now. So I got my money back from the registration fees from those tournaments. But as I've said many times, if I'm going to be here in Pennsylvania, it has to be either two things. Either one, it's like Florida, so it's like 80 degrees out and beautiful. Well, you're only going to get that in like July and August here, which is usually when I come up, like I was here this past August. Or it's going to be really, really cold, and it's going to snow. Now, I got that when I first got here. It was fantastic. Now, the last couple days are that weather I don't care for. It's getting up into the 30s and things are starting to melt, and it's still overcast though. It's still, the sky is ugly. But tomorrow, going to get cold again, going to snow again, and so I'm going to be happy. But trust me, I just wish I didn't have to be around snow at all. It's just, if it's going to be 30 degrees and rainy, I would just rather it be 0 degrees and get snowing a lot. So Linda, I'm all for a foot of snow, 2 feet of snow, 3 feet of snow. Just bring it on. Let's just make it as crazy as possible. I'm serious. I mean, it was like -2 degrees when I got up here, when I first got here. And although I can't complain about it, it is kind of cool. Let's just do it. So that's my answer to your question. Is 12 inches of snow enough? Probably not. But if that's what we get through Friday, through Thursday into Friday, then probably I'll probably have some fun with that one way or the other. Boston says, I watched the Jody Who's a Truth episode. It didn't feel like they covered anything new. Christy, I'm in Northeast Ohio on farm with horses to take care of. We had 23 inches last week with drifts. It was waist high with drifts when I had to get out there to feed, not digging it. Now, you have your horses. Do you put those coats on them? Christy, those things like over their backs, I guess that, of course, would help with their body temperature. Or do you just keep your horses inside during this? And what is like the temperature for horses? When does it get too cold for horses to be out in the field? That's it's an if you could answer that, I'd be very interested. Kathy, Christy, like anything else, you have to experience whatever it is yourself to truly understand. For example, cancer. Now I know about cancer. I'm in remission. Linda agrees with me regarding all the snow. Boston, I really dislike driving in the snow. Yuck. It's good that you're able to get your dad to and from safely. We has a Jeep with 4-wheel drive. I'm not a big Jeep person. But yeah, it's great for this. But if it's icy, then it doesn't matter what you're driving. But I did have to get my snow driving skills out last Friday because, like I said, after I saw my buddy Brad, half of the ride home was a little dicey. There's hope. Meanwhile, in San Francisco Bay Area, we've been having temps in the mid-60s, which is certainly warm for that area. Sure. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Blankets. Christy says it doesn't get too cold. Okay. They love, I think you meant to say they love the cold. Okay. You get the blankets on them and they have these little coats. It's kind of cool. A woman who I went to high school with has a couple horses and she'll post pictures. And I know in this weather, when she has them outside, she has those coats on them. But I've seen horses really get into snow on the ground, and they'll start pawing at it and like getting down and rubbing their backs in it. So Christy says horses grow as much hair as a fat bear in the winters. Okay. Learning something new about horses. I'm allergic to horses though, so I have to watch myself. All right. What time we got? We got a few minutes, so I do have a chance to talk about this. This is a story that I got tagged in. And it is a doozy. Let me just see something out here first. Hold on. Well, looky there. A person, Cherie, a person known as Charlie Bravo is being asked to join the discussion group. How about that? Let's see here. Okay. I don't think I've gotten any additional questions. Okay. I want to read the story that comes out of Canada. It's a crazy one. I got tagged in this by a listener who wanted me to check this out. I'm going to read it to you. This comes from Toronto, Wasaga Beach, Ontario. Woman abducted in Wasaga Beach, Ontario was attacked weeks earlier, cousin says. I'm just going to read this. It's a decently long article, so bear with me. A woman who police say was abducted by 3 men in Wasaga Beach, Ontario earlier this month, so earlier in January, was also attacked in a separate incident just weeks before she was taking, her cousin says. On top of that, 37-year-old Elnaz Hajamiri had reason to believe she was being watched after tracking devices were found on a car she had been leasing, according to her cousin. Those are just some of the new details Hajamiri's family is sharing about her life in the period before she went missing. The family is working with investigators and pleading for help from the public as police continue to search for her 16 days after she was taken. So 16 days on the 28th. So it's 20 days now. It's been devastating. The family has been kind of crushed by this. It feels as if our lives stopped in this moment. CBC News is not identifying the cousin who lives in the United States out of concern for her safety. 2 violent attacks. Hajimiri's cousin said the first attack happened on the evening of December 21st when 2 masked men jumped Hajimiri in the parking garage of a Richmond Hill condo building and violently beat her with a frying pan. York Regional Police confirmed to CBC News that investigators have been actively investigating the assault. That attack had caused a massive gash in her head. She had about 30 to 40 stitches. It was quite gruesome, the cousin said. The cousin also said in the course of their investigation, police found a tracking device attached to Hachimiri's car, and it wasn't the first time that had happened. 2 tracking devices had previously been discovered underneath her Lexus by workers at a dealership, the cousin said, when she brought it in for service. That is obviously very jarring for her. She was terrified for her life, said the cousin. CBC News has not been able to confirm details on the trackers, but has independently confirmed her car was serviced around the time of the attack. According to the cousin, the first attack left Hachimiri so shaken that she went to stay with relatives at a home on Trailwood Place in Wasaga Beach, which is a small town on the southern shores of Georgian Bay, approximately 145 kilometers north of Toronto, so 100 miles north of Toronto. That's where she was abducted by 3 men who were dressed in police gear and claimed to have a warrant for her arrest on July 12th around 8:30 p.m. Investigators with Ontario Provincial Police, OPP, said last week. You down with OPP? Yeah, you know me. Detective Inspector Matt Watson said the suspects overpowered the homeowner and abducted Hajimiri, then took off in a white Lexus RX SUV. They forced entry into the house and overwhelmed the family and basically dragged Elnaz out barefoot in the freezing cold snow. Yeah, it's Canada. The men took her watch and her cell phone, threw it in the snow. She was obviously screaming at this time, and then there was a period of silence after that. The cousin is asking residents with security cameras in the neighborhood where Hajimiri was abducted to check their footage for any trace of the white SUV. The cousin wouldn't say if the family has any indication why Hajimiri may have been targeted or if they have any theories about who her attackers may be. Elnaz was a very, very wonderful person with high moral integrity and standards, and we have no reason to believe that she was involved or connected with anyone that had any criminal activity. We believe that she is still alive because we don't have any reason to believe otherwise. OPP officials told CBC News they have no further updates on the status of the investigation. Hajimiri, who also goes by the last name Tamiri, is described as 5 feet, 3 inches tall with slim build and shoulder-length black hair. She was born in Iran and came to Canada in 2018 and found work in the import-export shipping industry, according to press release from the family, but she recently left her job to focus on a cake-making business. The release said she also volunteered for charitable organizations. She married a veterinarian, Farnan Shagabfar, when she was 25, but he died in 2017, according to the release. The family says Hachimiri used their savings to help build a school for young girls in an impoverished village in Iran in honor of her late husband. That is a crazy story. Yeah, that's Charlie says. Yeah, Charlie Bravo trying to get in the discussion group. Yeah, that is Shree. It's good to have you back. It'll be good to have you in the discussion group elsewhere. Thank you for coming back. That's cool. The Real says, I've had a wild time during the podcast. I've been having a wild time too, The Real. That rain turned into a severe weather event. I think that's what's going to happen here too, The Real, tomorrow. There's Hope says, bummer, I've got to leave right now. We'll listen later. Okay, there's Hope. Thank you for checking in. Thank you for your contribution through Super Chat tonight. What program was I just on? I was on the News Nation Now network last Wednesday night, although I have to admit, I forget the name of the program that I was on. I'll be honest. It was from 9 to 10 on News Nation Now, and I think it's that way during the week. I think it was that older man that liked her. You mean talking about this article I just read? Yeah. Charlotte says, that is terrible. Kathy Christie, that is wonderful. Okay, yeah. So, okay. So, I have to admit this might make a good Unfound now, maybe a month from now, maybe at the end of this month or something. I can do an Unfound now from Toronto or from Canada. That's totally fine. I have to admit, and I know this sounds terrible, but I guess she did get these stitches and all of this. This almost sounds like some kind of prank. Even the person who tagged me even said, "Ed, this is wild." And in my response to it, I said, "Yeah, a little too wild." I just, I don't know what I don't know what to really make of this. Like I said, if she had not been injured the first time, this would seem like some total type of prank where she's trying to, get a social media, I don't know, viral campaign or something started. We know people do crazy stuff like this all the time. So, but people, I guess they were men, three men dressed in police gear. I mean, they pull up in a Lexus, but they're dressed as police. I mean, if you're gonna pull up in a white SUV, Lexus SUV, then why bother, dressing up as police at all? It just sounds so outrageous. you know. But she's been missing for 20 days. You'd think that the prank would be up by now. So I guess I'm supposed to believe that this is something real, but there's nothing, and I did a few searches. There's nothing that I was able to read about any of this that could lead to any reason why anybody would be doing this to her. Of course, we know that, if you're, if you're from a country, no, it's Iran. But if you're from a country that, if you're speaking out against that country, that sometimes they do send people to other countries to abduct people and take them back. That's a thing that happens. But it's hard to believe that's what's going on here. So I don't know what to do. Even if we were to say there's some sort of new, if she had some new boyfriend who's crazy. I mean, really, you get three guys dressed up in police gear. They don't get her once, but they get her the second time. This seems uh even outrageous for the most stalkerish of stalkers. So I just don't know. I don't know if any of you have seen this story, but I wanted to bring it up. Maybe all of you can now keep your eyes on it. And like I said, if she's not found later this month, I might have to do an Unfound Now on this. I don't blame you, Ed. My first response to that story was that something seemed a bit fishy about it, and at the same time, I felt bad for even thinking that. Yeah, me too. I don't feel good about thinking this is some prank either, but we've covered 240 disappearances on Unfound, and none of them are like this one. This seems overtly public, overtly wild, overtly outrageous, and that's kind of why I start thinking that this just sounds like some sort of prank or something. But she's been missing for 20 days. I think you're going to do a prank like that, 20 days is plenty. 7 days is plenty. So, no. But, on the other hand, we did have, her name doesn't, the woman in California who went jogging and allegedly got abducted by two women and was held hostage for all those days and then allegedly escaped. I know one of you will type her name in the chat very soon now, but a lot of people believe that was a prank too. So I just don't know. So you can check it out. Once again, the woman's name is Elnaz, Elnaz, and last name is Hajtamiri, Hajtamiri. If you'd like to Google, do a Google search and see what everybody's saying, like on Web Sleuths or something about her. Okay, let's go to this Friday's episode, being that we're now to 11 o'clock. Going to cover the disappearance of Andrea Knable. I think this is a disappearance that's fairly well known. I know that many other podcasts or in video places on YouTube have covered her disappearance. I think mainly because she was a person in the missing persons community in the Louisville, Kentucky area. She volunteered for a few years and was working with organizations there to help missing persons families. And then she goes missing herself. And I think that caught a lot of people's attention. And I think that this is why her disappearance has been covered by a variety of locations in the past 2+ years. And what happened was her sister Erin contacted me and I started talking to her. And then finally, last week, after I came up here to Pennsylvania, I got to interview Erin, who is Andrea's sister. And then I also at the same time interviewed Andrea's father, Michael. So we did, how dual interviews are so odd. I usually only interview one person. Well, I'm interviewing two people at the same time this week. And so this is the disappearance of Andrea Knable, Knabel, from Louisville, Kentucky, on August 13th, 2019. So this is a fairly new disappearance. Interview with her father, Michael, her sister, Erin. And the title of the episode is One of Our Own. This is one of those disappearances where the facts could point us in two totally different directions. My idea in reading how other people have covered the disappearance is there seems to be a strong belief out there that she did get picked up, that she wasn't necessarily abducted, but that she got picked up by somebody while at her mother's home, waiting outside. Her phone pinged there, and there is proof that she did try to call or text a few people trying to get a ride from somebody. Well, and then she went missing. Her phone went off, and she is still missing 2.5 years later. However, I think given her demeanor that night, given how she was acting at her sister Erin's house, and the amount of walking she did do that night, I still think we should be open to the idea that she walked off all on her own. I think, we don't theorize in the episodes. It will be up for you to determine what makes the most sense. But, what complicates matters is that even her father and her sister in the interview will admit she was hanging around a lot of shady people. And that in those couple years before she went missing, she kind of was on a downward spiral. You will hear her father talk about how he was very worried about her. So that is this Friday, the disappearance of Andrea Knable, Knabel, from Louisville, Kentucky, August 13th, 2019. Interviews with her father, Michael, sister Erin, and the title of the episode is One of Our Own. Charlotte's leaving. Good night, Charlotte. Kathy says, Sherry Papini, thank you for getting that for me. Yeah, Sherry Papini. A lot of people believe that was some sort of prank or something that went wrong with her. Boston says, I've been obsessed with Andrea's story. Well, then I guess you will be very interested in this Friday's episode. Because the interviews that Michael and Erin are very complete. I think that the interviews ended up being about 2 hours long. Boston, I feel she's out there. I can't wait to hear your interview and afterthoughts. Okay. Yeah, that'll be on Friday. I anticipate it coming out on time. So that's the live show. What did we do tonight? Talked about how I will be here in Pennsylvania till probably the end of February. Groundhog Day, told my Groundhog Day story from 1997. Got to see my buddy Brad this past Friday. Won my Hoodball League, $250 richer. Jennifer Perrypole, Chesley Christ, Unfound Now. Talked about the newsletter. Talked about a possible new podcast provider. News Nation Now. Tomorrow I'm interviewing a 95-year-old and the Jody Huisentruit episode on 2020. Took some questions from Charlotte, Linda. There's hope for change. And then finished it up, as we always do, with the episode for this coming Friday, the disappearance of Andrea Knable. Or is it Andrea? Andrea Knable. So that's all I got. Thank you all for joining me tonight. It was fun. Cherie, thank you for moderating tonight. And you will all hear me on Friday, February 4th. Keep your head on a swivel, as Cherie says. Hope you all had a spectacular Groundhog Day. Good night.